Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jose Aranda. I work at Doña Ana Community College, and this week we are presenting several programs in celebration of Latinx Heritage Month. Today we have a special guest. She'll be talking about the pioneer family of the Mesilla Valley, the Armijo family. From NMSU, she works in the Rio Grande Historical Collection as an archivist. Please welcome Jennifer Olguin. Stop sharing. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored and to be one of the panelists here for the Hispanic Heritage Week. As Jose indicated, I work in the Rio Grande Historical Collections as the archivist. I've been there for a little over a year, but I've been there at the library for over 10 years. So I've been familiar with the different collections in the archives. But this collection here was really fascinating to me as I was processing it. And I enjoyed it. And hopefully today I can give you a glimpse of what is in the collection. As you will see during the presentation, it's just a little glimpse of the different segments of the collection, but there's many more materials that it consists of. Again, this event sponsored by the DACC is a great opportunity to highlight the history, culture, and contributions of the Hispanic families here in Las Cruces. With that being said, I'm excited to share with you the Armijo and Gallagher family papers held at the NMSU Archive and Special Collections located at Branson Library. I wanted to share with you guys and take some time to briefly discuss the Rio Grande Historical Collections, RGHC for short, for those not familiar with the archival repository. The Rio Grande Historical Collections contains research records of organizations, personal papers, and other published materials which document the cultural heritage and history of New Mexico and the Spanish borderlands. We have other Hispanic-based collections held at the archives, but I wanted to focus on the Armijo and Gallagher family papers today, since it was recently processed and fully accessible to researchers. I wanted to add that due to the current health crisis, the archives is currently open by appointment only to NMSU affiliated researchers such as students, staff, and faculty. First, I wanted to share some background information regarding the Armijo family papers and how the NMSU archives acquired such collection. The RGHC acquired the papers of the Armijo and Gallagher families in the 1980s. But recently, the family donated a good amount of additional materials. The papers include personal, business, and legal documents, primarily concerning Nestor Armijo's involvement in the mercantile and ranching interest in southern New Mexico during the late 19th and early centuries. The papers document the Armijo business, social, and cultural networks in territorial New Mexico. I wanted to add, in the recent acquisition, there's a numerous amount of photos of the family, which is I guess a strong clue that the family was well off and really prominent in the region, because photos back in the day weren't as common as they are now. Also, the letterpress books, they offer a great insight on what type of activities and who they mingled with, who they had interactions with. So that gives you a strong clue on who the family was and who they had dealings with. So, I mean, you could spend years just analyzing the letterpress books, and that's one of the great resources within this collection here is just browsing, page by page, taking a look at the letters included in the letterpress books. The presentation will cover the Armijo family, as I mentioned, and it will primarily focus on Nestor Armijo. The Armijo family is considered one of the pioneer families of the Mesilla Valley. The family arrived in southern New Mexico in 1878 and assisted in the development of the City of Las Cruces. Nestor Armijo is credited in aiding in movements in which helped build the city and the advancement of the people. Though Nestor's success in the mercantile and ranching business put Las Cruces on the map during the early years due to his success. Today's presentation, I will go over segments of the Armijo and Gallagher family papers and highlight the material relevant to Nestor Armijo. As you can see here, there's a little bit of the sample of the collection. You see on your screen the front cover of the order book that was included in the family papers, and inside of the book, there's like I would say like a ledger type of a running ledger that had the different customers that had like I would say like a tab, an ongoing tab with the Armijo family or the Armijo mercantile store. One of the fascinating entries that I saw belonged to the Loretto Academy. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the Loretto Academy was a school that was ran by nuns in the 1800s, and it was near, pretty close by the Armijo home. But yeah, you can see within the ledger, just reading like what was sold, how much was bought. Also, you can see, like I mentioned in the letterpress books, the correspondence that they had with other people. I wanted to add that the collection is composed of thousands of letters represented in a letter book format, as I mentioned earlier, belonging to Nestor and Nicolas Armijo. Nicolas, really quick, he's the brother of Nestor Armijo. In a little bit in the upcoming slide, I will go over like a family tree and kind of put like in perspective who is who. So the next couple of slides, I will go into detail on who is related to who and the relationship there. By analyzing such material in the letterpress book, one could get an understanding on how life was carried out in the past and obtain a sense how involved Nestor and his brother Nicolas were during the time as merchants and also as a rancher. While browsing through the letters found within the collection, one could read and interpret the letters as historical sources. As we know, since early times, letters have been written to bridge distances, to build networks, and to strengthen relationships. Archivists and researchers appreciate letters as a valuable source. Letter writing is an important means of communication, as we all know. With that being said, the Armijo letters found in the letterpress books permit the researcher to gain access to various affairs that the Armijos were involved. For example, the letters reveal information about the time in which the letters were drafted. Further in the presentation, I will demonstrate a letter I came across while processing the collection that provides a glimpse of what was occurring during that specific time. I mean, as you all know, there's thousands and thousands of letters, so it was hard to pick a couple, but as soon as I opened one of the books, I came directly to one letter that caught my attention, but I will talk about it here in a bit and let you know what I found. So the family papers, again, they have a lot of personal business and legal documents concerning Nestor's involvement in the mercantile and ranching during the mid-1800s in southern New Mexico. Bulk of the papers document how they use their social and cultural experiences to their advantage. They became a well-known family in territorial New Mexico. A vast amount of the materials pertains to the Armijo home as to the renovation, as to how the home looked in the past. There's a lot of pamphlets, newspaper clippings of the home that is found in the family papers. As you see here, I made a quick family tree just to display who was related to who. I think it's easier to put that in perspective and then discuss the family dynamics later. As you can see here, now they have a insight of the Armijo family papers and what they consist of. To understand the Armijo family dynamics, as you can see, there's a family tree here illustrating the relationships. I will briefly discuss the family. So in 1855, Nestor married Josefa Yusari of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque. Josefa came from a prominent merchant family. She was the only daughter of Mariano Yusari and Juanita Otero de Yusari. Together, Nestor and Josefa had 2 biological children, which consisted of 1 son, Carlos Charles Armijo, and 1 daughter, Juanita Carolina. Juanita Carolina died at infancy, and in addition, the couple adopted a son. The son they adopted, his name was Federico, also known as Fred, was the adopted son who later married Mary Stevenson, daughter of Horace Stevenson. After 2 years of being married, Fred passed away at the age of 20 due to heart failure. And then Carlos Armijo, the biological son of Nestor and Josefa, was born at the family hacienda at Los Padillas on February 3rd, 1855. Carlos was educated in Germantown, Pennsylvania, and in Germany. After completing his formal schooling, Carlos returned home, followed his father's profession, and assisted in the family sheep and cattle business in New Mexico and Mexico. Carlos assisted his father by overseeing the Three Rivers Ranch, as well as the Mexican ranch and farms located in Chihuahua. In 1877, Carlos married Beatriz Otero, the daughter of well-known Otero family of New Mexico. Carlos and Beatriz together had 3 children, Nestor, Gertrude, and Josephine. You can see here, I illustrated Nestor and his wife, Josefa, and their children. I added Fred as well, and who he married, and then Beatriz, and then their 3 children here. Okay, so the Armijo family has strong roots that link them to the New Mexico region. The family has been part of New Mexico's political and economic growth since 1695, years before New Mexico became officially a state. The family is credited in playing an important role in the development of the state. The Pioneer family is a prime example how New Mexico Native families were involved in the mercantile and ranching business. The Armijo family is unique because they had somewhat of an advantage due to their bi-national and bicultural status. The Armijo were able to use their biculture to their advantage when conducting business in Mexico. As you can see here, I put some facts about Nestor. He was born in 1831 to Juan Cristobal Armijo and Juana Chavez in Los Padillas, New Mexico. That was near current day Albuquerque. He was one of the first New Mexicans to attend an American school. He graduated from the Christian Brothers School in St. Louis, Missouri. He returned to his native land and headed one of the first great sheep drives to California. As you can imagine, that was he had to cross rough terrains. It was a hard task, but he did that over and over until his time of death. So that demonstrates how dedicated he was to his profession. In his early 20s, he moved to Las Cruces and opened a supply mercantile store. Nestor was one of the most successful businessmen in Las Cruces during its early years. Nestor was an aggressive young businessman. He began transporting goods over the Santa Fe Trail as far as Kansas and Missouri. At the same time, he managed to continue in the ranching industry along his father in Los Padillas. It is safe to say that the mercantile interests expanded the family's affair and made them well known due to their success. So here, I wanted to add that the Las Cruces store formed a part of a chain of similar enterprises operated by Nestor and his brothers. Other stores were located in Albuquerque, El Paso, and Chihuahua. Nestor and his brother Nicolas Armijo were the most important comerciantes in their family. They're known as merchants. The supply stores, Nestor went to Westport, the present day Kansas City, Missouri, and made purchases of various types of general merchandise. He continued to make his trips to the east for 20 years, starting at the spring of each year and returning to his home in August with a wagon filled of train with his merchandise. He owned his own teams of oxen and wagons, and he established and sold the merchandise in stores in Las Cruces, El Paso, Texas, and Chihuahua. In 1868, Nestor made a trip to Chihuahua, Mexico, selling American goods wholesale. At the time, he was also engaged in the sheep business in New Mexico. Though his permanent home was in Las Cruces, which did not mean that Nestor stopped his business activities in Mexico. He kept them going almost until his time of death. So as I mentioned earlier, here is a glimpse of what I found while I was processing the collection. It was hard to narrow to specific letters, but I wanted to give you guys a glance of what I stumbled across. So here, as I mentioned earlier, are the letterpress books belonging to both Nestor and Nicolas. These letterpress books contain a great deal of information and serve as tangible evidence regarding their social status and importance. While I was browsing through the collection, I couldn't resist and read a couple entries. Like, hours went by and I'm like catching myself still reading through them because they just offered a great deal of information. It's just fascinating how you can go back in time, read about events, and learn about the past. For example, this letter here located on the slide, it's addressed to Eduardo Armijo. That is Nicolas's son. And it's dated November 16th, 1888. I know it's kind of hard to look, but I think you guys will have access to this recording later. But if you zoom into it, it's evident that the letter is written in Spanish and English. It's bilingual. And in the letter, Nicolas is indicating that he would like a report. I believe like it's a school progress report from his son's instructor. In the letter, Nicolas is telling his son that he can write back in Spanish and English so he can practice writing in both languages. At the end of the letter, Nicolas states that many children are dying of diphtheria. By analyzing and reading the letters, researchers can uncover the past, for example, such as illnesses and other events occurring during a specific time period. This is just a glimpse of, like I said, of what was found within the letterpress books. So again, when you guys get the copy of this, you guys can zoom in and zoom out and check out the letter for yourself. But it's pretty neat and fascinating to look at the letter and see what can be discovered. So again, one of another findings I found that's in the family papers, which is within the legal series of the family papers, is a depredation claim made in 1877 as a result of the losses that Nestor Armijo had from Indian attacks in 1860, 1862, and 1865. These claims were made to the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. The claim was for the sum of $14,682, broken down from the amount of cattle that were killed, also the sheep, the mules, and so on. The result, the claim was never paid. So that was a huge loss to Nestor Armijo and his ranching profession. Here, this is another great entry located in the ledger. This belonged to Benigno Salon, dated May 1864, and this was found in one of the store ledgers. So here I kind of just took a little bit of what I saw within the entry. This person, Benigno, was he had bought some candles, which velas, 13 for $1 a piece, 16 pounds of 16 pounds of lard, 82 pounds of sugar. So as you go on, everything's written in Spanish. So I would say a good portion of the collection is in Spanish. So you can analyze, the information there as well. All right. So another example of an interesting legal document was the large oversized sheet titled "The Legation of the United States of America." As I mentioned, Nestor's permanent home was here in Las Cruces, but he traveled to Mexico pretty often, either to buy merchandise or to check on his ranch and his other dealings that he had there. It was evident that conducting business in Mexico was risky. So here, this legation document here is evidence of that it was a risky on his part to go back and forth. But here I wanted to share what the document read. So a little glimpse here. It says, hereby request to all whom it may concern to permit safely, freely to pass Nestor Armijo, a citizen of the United States, and in case of need to give him all lawful aid and protection. The document here is signed, as you see on your screen, is signed by John W. Pfister. And also on the left-hand column, there's like a physical description of Nestor. At the time that this document was produced, he was 41 years old. He was 5'8". And a given description of his eyes, his facial features. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what we think of like now, like a kind of like a passport, so to speak. But this is literally like the size of I think I would compare it to like maybe the size of a newspaper. When you unfold it, it's about that size. So it's pretty large in size. So I thought I would share with you all. But this was a pretty neat document that I came across as well. So Nestor had properties, like I mentioned, in near Tularosa, New Mexico, known as the Three Rivers Ranch, which we will discuss shortly. He had a ranch in Janos, Chihuahua. He also invested in lots in Albuquerque during the land boom that followed by the arrival of the railroad there in the 1880s. The map located on the slide depicts acreage owned by Nestor, which was near the famed Loreto Academy. And again, I know there's a lot of information to analyze here, but you guys will be provided with the recording, so you can take the time to analyze the map, I guess a little bit further when you have access to the recording. Okay. On the topic of real estate, I want to touch base on the Armijo residence. If you're familiar with Las Cruces, chances are that you have driven by the Armijo residence many, many times, since it's located pretty much in downtown, in the heart of Las Cruces. The home is registered and in the National Register of Historic Places. Some background information and history about the home. It was built by Bradford and Maricita Daly, and it was they originally built it. Nestor Armijo purchased the house in 1877, and soon after, Nestor expanded the home and added a second floor, making the home the first two-story in Las Cruces. The home had the following. So it had 6 bedrooms on the ground floor and a large center hall running the full 56-foot depth of the building. The second floor contained 2 parlors, another hall, a large storage room over the rear 2/3 of the structure. On a side note, besides the Armijo home, there's a street located in the Alameda Historical Depot District, located in Las Cruces, that bears the name of Armijo and serves as a reminder of the prominent family. As you can see here, here's one of the images of the home. I'm not sure the exact time frame, but here's the present image of the home, as we all know how it looks now. All right, so the ranching profession, like I mentioned, it wasn't a foreign business to Nestor. Sheep raising was part of the Armijo family's enterprise, and it was likely that Nestor was introduced to the ranching profession at a young age. Sheep raising in particular ran deep in the Armijo family bloodlines. Nestor's father pursued the first and foremost business of sheep raising, a business Nestor himself knew well. As stated previously, Nestor obtained additional income in ranching. He had ranches in Tularosa and Mexico. The Tres Cerritos Three Rivers Ranch was situated 20 miles north of Tularosa. The Three Rivers Ranch was on the larger side and included around 2,000 acres, more or less, and it was managed by his son, Charles, also known as Carlos. Nestor was primarily involved in the sheep and cattle business, in which he was rewarded in financial success. While Charles managed and oversaw the daily ranch business, obstacles were encountered and therefore led to the mismanagement of the ranches. Charles divided his time as manager of the Tres Cerritos and Janos Mexico ranches. It is noted that the Tres Cerritos ranch was well developed and profitable, with its sheep ranges and its grains and fruit farms. Most of the produce of the Tres Cerritos made its way to Lincoln the Mescalero Agency, and the White Oaks mining camps. As later on, it was within the papers, I also found out that later on the ranch located in Tularosa was sold to Albert Fall. But we can go over that later in another slide coming up. So Nestor, besides owning real property in Chihuahua, he also invested in government securities of the state. Here are some, I think it's like bank bonds that I found within the collection. There was like at least eight or more around that that he had. They were neat to take a look. Of course, the original, so it was neat to take a look at what he had at that time. Also was noted that Nestor would loan money to individuals. So I guess you can say he was an unofficial bank. And one of the correspondence I came across, it appears that he would he seemed more of an investor, lender, and speculator more than an entrepreneur, I guess, so to speak, in a way. For example, in 1867, it was noted that he loaned $7,000 to Henry Warren of Concordia in El Paso County and took as security as a mule train consisting of 6 wagons, a harness, and 60 mules. Nestor was to hold the mule train in trust for a period of 30 days, and then Warren would reclaim his train by paying Nestor the sum of $7,000 and also paying for the feed of the mules in kind and actual expenses of the men employed in caring for the animals in train. So as you see there, you know, it was kind of like an unofficial bank, like I said earlier. So a lot of in the financial series, you see like handwritten receipts that Nestor would, you know, lend his friends and family also money. So you can go back there and see, okay, wow, you know, at that time, $7,000, that was a huge amount of money. I mean, it is now still, but back in the day, it was even more so. So you kind of get a idea of how well and wealthy he was. All right, so moving on to minor political activities. Politics was never an area where Nestor was involved. He participated behind the scenes, but he never ran for political office. It was mentioned that although he was interested in the great game of New Mexico politics, and he was a liberal donor to the Democratic Party, he declined all invites to public office. As you can see here on your screen, it seemed like kind of a certificate, but it was an invitation from J. Francisco Chavez, acting president of the Constitutional Convention. He appointed Nestor in 1889 to become one of the 25 representatives of the territory. Representatives had a duty to visit Washington and to present to Congress the reasons entitling New Mexico to admission as a state. It wasn't evident if Nestor made the trip or if he even participated. So I mean, this right here, it means, and what an honor and a privilege it was for Nestor to be invited. So this is another great finds that I came across. All right, so some of the declining years that the Armijo family encountered. During the early 1900s, Armijo family experienced deaths within the immediate family circle. In the winter of 1902, Beatrice and Carlos passed away 17 days apart, which left the younger daughters of Carlos without parents. Nestor and Josefa took the orphan daughters and raised them. To make matters much more tragic, Nestor's wife and companion of many years was ill in health. She passed away, Josefa passed away in 1905 in Rochester, Minnesota. If I don't know if I'm correct, but I believe she was in Rochester seeking treatment for cancer, I believe. So that's she had passed away there. Also, financial reverses crowded the last years of Don Nestor Armijo. The Mexican Revolution robbed him of much of his wealth. It was noted that his cattle and sheep and bank stocks, you know, were kind of becoming worthless. Failure of El Paso Mortgage and Investment Company rocketed his losses. Realty depreciated and rentals dropped. So that gives you an perspective on, a lot of his income was pretty much hit hard. So in 1911, the Armijo family patriarch passed away. Nestor's sudden death made local headlines, as you see here, in regional papers. Some of these headlines you see on your screen here are newspaper clippings that I came across in the family papers. There's some that were he made headlines even in Albuquerque. Also, of course, many of the newspapers here, Las Cruces at the time, the Rio Grande, is it the, I think of it right now, but the, what is it called? I can't think of the newspaper of back in the time, but as you can see here, there's a bunch of, this is just a handful of clippings that I found, but there's a lot more clippings within the family papers that covered his death. It is noted in the local newspaper that Nestor had attended a motion picture with his granddaughter the previous evening, and he returned home in what seemed to be in good health and spirits. He arose Sunday morning and suddenly fell over and passed away. It is believed that his death was caused from a bursting blood vessel, which I guess reached his heart and caused immediate death. Nonetheless, Don Nestor Armijo was a reputable and well-respected man within the Las Cruces community. He was buried in the Catholic cemetery in Las Cruces in a family plot that he established near his mother, wife, and son. And as I mentioned earlier, the family papers also consist of the Gallagher family. Carlos's daughter Josephine married Peter Gallagher, and the papers covered that side of the family. I mean, it's not a huge amount that consists of the Gallagher family, but I mean, there's still a good amount of information that's represented within the papers. If you're interested in accessing the finding aid of the family papers, you can find that on the Rocky Mountain Online Archive database. There, you'll be able to see the family papers with the intel and the in-depth information regarding the collection. Again, thank you again for tuning in. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Does anyone have any questions, either through the chat or you can unmute yourselves?
I have something, Jennifer. I really liked it. Thank you. That was very nice. I love to listen to all the historical stuff. I was just curious. I know that the letters that were sent out earlier, and you talked about the letterpress book and all of the wonderful letters. Do you know how they delivered mail and how much mail cost, or was it just a free thing? Do you know anything about that?
I don't. I want to say I don't, and within the family papers, I don't think there are, it's been a while since I looked at it, but I don't know if there might be like a postmark. So they might indicate how much it costs to send the letters. But right now I can't tell you how much it was, but we could check and see how much they were by analyzing the postage and the envelope. That's my only suggestion, and kind of to get a general idea how much it cost back in the day.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question.
Okay.
You said that there are lots of personal letters, right, in the archives. Is there enough? Because I'm curious. You know, the 19th century just was full of unique and significant experiences and historical incidences. I was wondering if in the letters there's reference to what Nestor Armijo thought about, for example, in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe, you know, when Mexico lost this part of its side, and or the railroads, how that changed life. I'm just wondering if diaries talk to those things.
I'm sure that it's documented somewhere in the letterpress books. Like I said, there's tons of information. You could spend years analyzing it. But I want to say maybe from the 1880s onto like the, until his time of death, there's a lot of information covered in those letterpress books. But again, if you're affiliated with the university, feel free to contact the archives, and we can get you in touch with those papers, and that way they can be analyzed. But we're more than happy to assist you in your research needs if you want to take a further look into those into the family papers. But yes, I agree. The letterpress books have a great deal of information, and who knows what's in them. I mean, there's a lot to be discovered, and I'm hoping once I can go back to the office to take a closer look and analyze the letters in much more detail.
Right. Yeah. Any other questions or comments from our attendees? I know several of them, I don't know if you can see, Jennifer, but in the chat, several of them are giving kudos and thank yous and congratulations. So I too.
Thank you guys. It was my pleasure.
I too echo that sentiment. Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to add there are other papers that we have that document Hispanic families of the region. For example, we have the well-known Amador family papers. That's another valuable resource that people reach out to us. Excuse me. So that's another resource there that we have that is another pioneer family of the region. But like again, I wanted to highlight this family since the collection was reprocessed. So I hope that people find it fascinating.
There's a question from one of the attendees. Do you have any, is there any information in the archives on the Fritz family from Mesilla?
It's not solely probably a collection not just dedicated to them, but I'm sure there's correspondence from other family papers that we have that include the Fritz. Yeah, if you go into the Rocky Mountain Online Archive database, you can do a keyword search, and you can type in the Fritz and see what comes up. And if you don't find anything, email either me directly or email the archives at nmsu.edu, and we can take a further look for you and see what we can find on the Fritz family.
Okay, and another question just came in. Who was the most popular person he mingled with in his early years? That was documented.
I would say one of the people I came across was the governor of a Chihuahua. He communicated with him on a frequent basis. I want to say his name was Enrique Criel. So you see a lot of correspondence with him. Locally, I mean, regionally, I really didn't have a chance to take a close look, but there's different people he communicated with via mail. But if you would like, I can get your contact information, and whenever I get back to my office, I can take a look and get back to you and let you know.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Jennifer. It's a pleasure. And for those of you that will maybe of interest to you later on this evening, we're going to have another panel discussion at 6 p.m. History, Healing, and Celebration with several faculty and graduate students from New Mexico State. Thank you all for coming. We hope to see you soon.